Hello chaps and chapettes, it's that time again for my count of games that I've played over the course of October 2024. If you've watched my other videos, you see that they're quite long. I'm going to try and keep this one short. Hopefully it will be short because I've only got 8 games to talk about that I've played, and I'm going to do a slightly different format of just really condensing some of these my opinions and advice for these games into very short chunks, but some of them I'm going to extend because it's probably the first time that I've spoken about these games. And yeah, so let's start with those. First on the list is a game called Jamaica. This is a great game. I've done a review of this already. If you like family style games that you wish you played when you were 10 years old, this is a game for you. It's a race around the island, and it's done with dice and cards. So it's not technically a rolling move, but you're rolling dice and then you're playing a card to activate those dice to do different things, either to move forwards, move backwards, or collect resources like cannons for when you have a fight with a fellow pirate, or gold, which is points at the end of the game, or food, which will allow you to stay in a certain location, and the gold will let you dock in a port as well. So this is a fun, fantastic game. It's still in print. It's had a reskinning, but it's an amazing game. Go and check out Jamaica. And now to a game that I've played a lot of times, and it's not in the same format. This is a different version. This is Cardline Globetrotters. Now, if you've seen my reviews before, you see that I like these small tin boxes from Bombay X of Timeline and Cardline, animals in particular. But this is Globetrotters. It's the same thing. You'll have a number of cards in front of you, and the objective of the game is to be the first to get rid of all of your cards by placing them in a chronological order. In this case, with Globetrotters, it's countries, and so you either put in a line of the population, the size of the country, or its ecological footprint, and there's another one which I've totally forgotten about. But yeah, there are 4 categories, so each time you play the game, you can play it with a different category, and some of them are a bit easier than others. But this is a kind of slightly educational, fun for the whole family. Maybe not all the family, because this is like a harder one. The animals one is a little bit easier, and there's a dinosaurs one which is extremely hard. But yeah, that's Cardline Globetrotters. Now, if you like party games and you like playing with adults, or you like playing with your teenage kids, Codenames is the best game in the world, and everybody will say that with me. It's a word association game where you're trying to find the words that your teammate are trying to give you with clues, or one-worded clues, and they will give you a number of other words that they're trying to look for, which are in this pile of 25 cards in front of you. And you don't want to find your opponent's team's cards, and you don't want to find the double agent card. It's an amazing theme, which makes it easy to explain the game, but the theme is lost as soon as you start playing because you're just having shits and giggles. This is a really good laughing game where you are taking the mick out of the other people for their trains of thoughts and how they associate words. So definitely get Codenames. And then The Island, or it's reprinted Escape from Atlantis. I think it's called, I can't remember what it's called, but there's a reprint of this game just come back out. This is another one of those kind of I wish I played as a kid kind of board game. The Island, or Escape from Atlantis, is a game where you have people on an island and you have your team on the island, and you've got to try and get them off. You have 3 action points that you can spend to move them to another adjacent space, or put them in a boat and then sail the boat. But all the other players are doing the same, and at the same time this island is sinking, and so players are sabotaging your attempts to escape the island while you're sabotaging theirs. This is a bit carnage and chaos and everything else, but it's in a fun family game which doesn't take too long to play. And with like 2 slightly different modes and about 4 different expansions, so you can play up to like 8 players, and then you can add the dolphin expansion, the octopus expansion, or kraken expansion. It all adds up to a great time at the table, that family fun. I can't recommend this more for like that evolution from Mr. Pop to this. Before I go any further, I just want to say a quick thank you to Game Toppers for sponsoring this video. Game Toppers is a system, and I will show you what this camera is stood on, is a system which you place on top of your existing table, or in my case, on 3 IKEA units, where I can shelve games underneath my table, and it gives it a nice steady support, and it comes with lots of different types of mats that you can roll out and change the theme of, well, you can change the theme and the atmosphere of the game slightly by the color of your mat that you've placed underneath it. And I also want to say thank you to BGG for being there, because it is a great resource for finding out about board games and to let you know that you are not alone. Yes, board gamers can feel quite lonely sometimes, and this is, as I said, a great resource to find out about other games and do your research before you spend your money, because they're not cheap things. And that will lead me to my rule of thumb. My rule of thumb and advice to you is to not just watch one reviewer. It's to watch 5 reviewers review the same game, and that should generate a good impression of what that game is, which will then kind of give you some advice and give you a pointer in the direction if it's a game for you or not. And hopefully this is what my videos do as well. I'm not telling you to go out and buy them, but just give you kind of like my point of view, my perspective about these games, why I like playing them, and hopefully if you listen to my advice, go and listen to 4 other people and see if these games match with their opinions, and then that should give you your opinion. So moving swiftly on to the 4 games that are left, which I'm going to go into a bit more depth about. Number 1, the Reiner Knizia, Lord of the Rings game. This is the old Hasbro one, as you can see. This is the story of Lord of the Rings, and I played this with my 7-year-old after he'd watched Lord of the Rings and the Hobbits very recently. And this is a card game basically, where you will have a hand of cards, and these cards have 4 different things on them. They'll either be friendship, battling, hiding, or walking. And as you go through the story, you will be playing these cards to move along the tracks according to whatever those cards are. So you're doing this as a cooperative thing. You're going to be playing Sam and Frodo and Merry Pippin and maybe Fatty Boggins, whatever his name is. And you're going to be playing cards as events unvolve. So there might be an event in the story which happens, which says, you know, someone needs to spend 2 Joker cards or 2 walking cards, and then you can progress without Sauron moving. Because that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to avoid Sauron, you're trying to avoid him getting hold of the ring, and you just want to stay in the game. And you're just basically playing cards each turn. You can play 1 or 2 cards, but they've got to be different colors, so a grey or a white or both. And that will advance you on these tracks. And each board has its own different track system, and one of those tracks, it might be the fighting track, which is the main thread of the story, or it might be the walking track, which is the main thread of the story. And as soon as you get to the end of that track, you then progress to the next board or the next part of the story. This game is relatively light. It does feel like you are reading the story or watching the film again, but you're doing it in a kind of like friendly way of just say, oh, I have these cards, let's play these, and you keep your cards for later, and or you work together as a team. You go, oh yeah, I can play one of those cards, or you play one. Okay, we've avoided Sauron moving, or we've avoided Frodo going close to the darkness with the ring. It is the story, and it works. It's not amazing, but it works. This is a game that I would probably play once a year. We got very close to destroying the ring. That's how easy the game is. Me and a 7-year-old. He got a bit distracted, and we were just like 2 cards away from destroying the ring, and he did something else, and then the next turn, the next tile, which made an event happen, made Sauron move very close, and that was it. Game over. But yeah, if you like the story of Lord of the Rings, and you have young kids who like the story as well, and you just want kind of like something very, very easy to get into, this is quite a good thing to get into. It may feel a bit dated. It does feel mechanically very old, and it looks a bit old as well, but it's still a relatively good game to play. That is Lord of the Rings by Reiner Knizia. Now, I may have spoken about this game before, I can't remember, but The Witcher: The Old World, I've played solo, because you can do, basically. It's based in the Witcher universe with the CD Projekt Red artwork probably more than the actual book, but it does kind of follow what the witches do, which is go around the world, or go around their kingdom and destroy monsters if possible. You're going to be doing this to get victory points. When you get to 5 victory points, you've completed it. Obviously, if you're playing with other players, it's a competition. The first one to get to 5 wins the game. It's a card system. I'm not going to say it's a card deck building game. There is the deck building, but it doesn't feel prominent enough because you're only getting 1 card at the end of every round. And a round can be as long as you want it. You can, number 1, use the cards that you have, which is normally 4, to move around the land. Each card has an icon, which means you can go to the sea or the mountain or a forest. And so you're moving from space to space. Once you get to a space, you're basically going to be elevating your character's statistics by making them stronger or better in combat, better in defense, or their special power, or better in potions. And you may do some gambling to get some money, and then use that money to also learn to augment your skills and then get your level up. And that's the game. You're going to get to a certain level until you're ready and strong enough to fight a monster. And when you do, the game changes. The game changes, so you get your deck of cards, you reshuffle them, and that becomes your life points. You then use those cards to fight the monster, and they have these chaining abilities that you can lock the cards together, and it will chain by color and chain by power. And then you can try and whittle down the monster's life points, which is again a deck of cards. Each monster has a different amount of deck of cards. They also have their own special ability at the beginning of your turn, and if you defeat them, yeah, you get a treasure, a trophy. If they defeat you, not too bad. You just draw a very smaller hand, but you still get a card added to your hand. Now there are a lot of the game you're going to be spending just walking around the island, building up your character, and then always going to have like a bit of a story element, because that's one of the options that you have to do, because you can't always fight a monster. You'll have to choose one of the city or forest location cards, and then you'll have a bit of text, which is very, very thematic and feels like it's from the Witcher books, and then a choice of A and B, and then you choose what you want to do. This might lead you on to another kind of story-driven thing where you draw a story card and then you have to go and do this and go that, and there's benefits from that. Or it just might be you chose poorly and you lose, 1 defense, or you chose wisely, you get some gold and you get to level up your potions or whatever. So thematically, it feels more like The Witcher than, say, Skyrim feels like Skyrim. But I don't think there's much of a competition. Yeah, this game feels good. I don't think I'm going to be playing it forever as a solo game. I'm going to try it, hopefully soon, playing it with other players and see how it feels, because that way the players get to fight each other to get a bonus kind of ability, so to speak, and they also get to gamble against each other, which is a way of stealing money from them if you're good at and lucky at rolling dice. The Witcher: The Old World is, at the moment, kind of a fun game. I'm not sure if it's a game that I'm going to keep. Definitely not for solo mode, because it's just a case of trying to do it in as less turns as possible to be a good Witcher, which is for solo mode. But yeah, it is enjoyable, and it's gorgeous, and it's well put together. Now we're going to talk about Evergreen. Evergreen is from Horrible Guild, and it may feel familiar to you guys who may have seen me review Photosynthesis, because it is the same designer. It's Halima Hash, or Mr. H as I like to call him, because I don't like saying his name wrong. But yeah, this is a game about trees, much like Photosynthesis, which is the same game, but basically you have your own map to play on, whereas in Photosynthesis it's a bit more competitive, as you are playing on the same map, planting your trees and trying to get dominance with your trees. In this, as I said, you have your own map. The only interaction is basically from a card drafting that you do at the beginning of your turn. You draft a card, which will tell you a region that you can perform your actions on, and it'll also give you a special ability. You might be able to plant an extra sapling, or if you draw another card of that later on, you'll be able to place 2 saplings. And so these powers will build up, and so each time you activate it, they become quite strong. You might go for points, you might go for the ability to make trees grow quicker or add more lakes which make trees grow quicker. Yeah, you're basically going to be drafting and then planting trees around your planet. And at the end of every round, there's 4 rounds in the game, you're going to score points for the light which touches your trees. The taller the tree, the more of a shadow it creates, and any trees in that shadow don't score any points. So you have to really kind of think and map out everything as you place it onto the board. But at the same time, you want to cluster your trees together because you also get bonus points at the end of the round for your biggest forest. And so it becomes like this struggle of, I can't put this too much close together, but I still need to put it close together, kind of thing. At the end of the game, you're going to score points for your biggest trees. You're going to score points for your biggest trees, and that's what you're trying to aim for. It's very, very light, thinky game, which you are kind of playing in your corner, and that's where the points at the end for the big trees come, because the card that doesn't get drafted at the end of every turn goes into like this kind of I don't know, reserve, so to speak. And these cards, sometimes they have these kind of photosynthesis points, so to speak. I can't remember the technical term, but yeah, they have little flowers on them. And these will accumulate. So if you reject 3 brown cards for the brown barren land, and they have 5 in total with these flowers, at the end of the game, each large tree in that brown sector is going to score you 5 points. So not just 1 point, but 5 points for each large tree, which is great. But it's getting that choice of, ooh, I need to get some more trees into that brown sector, but if I leave that brown card, it's going to make the points even better. But if I take it, then I can plant some trees there. And it's like, ah. But yeah, this is a nice kind of self-indulgent puzzle that you can do on your own. As I said, very, very little interaction, not like photosynthesis where you are fighting for dominance in this area of trees. Really enjoy it so far, and I played it with my 7-year-old who picked up the rules pretty well, and he did score pretty well. But yeah, it's fun. You can play it solo, but again, it's that get the highest score thing. Yeah, not fun. And finally, I'm running out of breath because I'm talking so fast and trying to get through this video so fast. Yes, 20 minutes. So this video is going to be shorter than 20 minutes. Era, a medieval age, is a kind of roll and write game, but it's roll and build because this game comes with physical buildings that you place onto a physical board and you build up this city. The great things about this game, number 1, the components are stellar. Number 2, you can play solo, but it is best with more players. The more players, the better. 4 players, there's some interaction, quite a bit of interaction. As you are fighting over the buildings, again, it's kind of like a draft system, but you need to pay resources to get these buildings to place them into your city. And once like one pool of buildings has run out, nobody can then build those buildings. So it might be the sawmill, which gain you 2 wood at the end of every turn, naturally, without you having to roll dice to gain wood, which is a great bonus. Breathe. And again, this also acts as like the end of the game. Once X amount of buildings have gone from the pools of buildings, the game ends and you score. So yeah, in this game, you're going to be rolling dice to either collect resources. So there are 4 resources: treasure, wood, stone, and wheat. You'll need the wheat to feed your people. Your people are your dice. You can get more dice by building certain buildings, which will give you more dice. But as I said, you need to keep feeding them, because if you don't feed them, you're going to have deaths in your city, which will be negative points at the end of the game. Each building has its own power. Each building has its own scoring points. And the great thing is you want to try and build a walled city. And then if you do that, every building inside the walled city gains you double the amount of points. So there's a challenge in itself there to, try and create this zone of buildings that are, all squashed together to give you lots of points. But at the same time, you don't want to have them all squashed together, because Some of the dice faces have these skull icons. When you roll a skull icon, you cannot re-roll it. You have like this 3-roll King of Tokyo, Yahtzee kind of mechanism of the game. The skull ones you can't re-roll unless you have like a clergy, and again, he has a re-roll ability, or there is another building which lets you re-roll on your first turn. If you get one of those, it does something bad to you. You have to lose a resource. If you have 2 of them at the end of the turn, you're gonna lose a point for every building which is touching another building. So as I said, you want to try and cluster them together and build a wall and then get double points. Brilliant. But you don't want to put your buildings close together, because if you ever get that time where you roll 2 skulls, it's gonna be negative points at the end of the game. This game has a lot of interesting little things that you try this, you try those buildings, and different ways of scoring. It is amazing. I don't really like roll and write games, but this feels fun. This feels that you are constructing something. That's the point. It's not visually constructing, but you're mentally constructing as well. Where do you put your farms? Do you really need that many farms to generate wheat? Or should you just rely on your dice rolling to get the wheat to feed your people so you don't get negative points? Lots of ways to score points, lots of different buildings. I want more expansions so I can play this game in many, many different ways. Now, I've played it this month solo and with the 7-year-old, who picked up the rules again pretty easily and was able to score quite well on the second turn. We played this, well, I've played it 4 times, twice solo and twice with my 7-year-old, and it just makes you want to play again and do better. And I think that's a great thing about a board game, is it makes you want to play it again and try something different to try and accelerate and get a better score. You play it and you go, okay, yeah, I should have done that. And then next time I'm going to do that. So there you go. That is a game that I really do love, and I've played this shed loads of times. Era, the medieval age. There you go. I've done it in a very, very short time. Hopefully this video has illuminated you a bit. As I said, go and check out some other reviewers, go and check out some popular reviewers, go and check out some non-popular reviewers and see what they think about these games as well, and let that be a guide to your decision making, whether you purchase a game and whether it's for you or not. I'll say thank you very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it. As I said, if this video you think is informative, share it with someone, will like it. But until next time, play nicely with each other.
Just sitting at the table next to Felicia would be quite nice. Wouldn't it be good? I got some board games I don't know.